Good afternoon, everyone. We are happy to welcome you to today's virtual brown bag. And for many students, they have a great interest in entrepreneurship. And today's brown bag roundtable is absolutely for you. We have three of our Board of Engineering members, the College Advisory Board, and all three of our members with us today are entrepreneurs. So we have a roundtable discussion that we'll be carrying on, but you, the attendees, have an opportunity to ask questions. Put your questions in the Q&A, and we will bring those up as part of this discussion today. So if there's things you want to know, we want to hear your questions. We're going to start off by letting each of our guests introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about their background and their current entrepreneurial activities, and if they want to add anything in historical entrepreneurial activities, they are welcome to as well. So we are going to start with Srini Gorty, and have him introduce himself.
Thanks, Carter. My name is Srini Gorty. I'm the founder CEO of Leap Metrics. We have an AI-driven care management and analytics software package that we sell to various provider organizations that care for chronically ill people. I have a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and a master's degree in computer science from the University of Houston. And I started my career by working for American Airlines for about 6.5 years in the 90s. And then went on to start multiple software companies in the supply chain and analytics space. Been very fortunate to get exposure to the airline industry, hospitality, logistics, distribution, restaurants, healthcare. So I kind of went into different industries and was very fortunate to learn a lot. The last venture we were involved in was a company that did online ordering for restaurants. Like a Grubhub. We exited that business, sold it to Eat Street. My wife is a software engineer as well. She's with Cisco Systems, and she is also an entrepreneur in some way. She has an Indian classical dance school here in North Dallas area. I have a kid in college and another one in high school. I want to thank UT Arlington for having me on this panel, and I'm happy to share my experiences with the group.
Thank you so much. We are now going to hear from Dr. Jeff Smith, alumni of UTA.
That's right. Tracy, could you do the share? My background is that I've been a scientist and engineer. I taught at UTA for a while. I did my master's and PhD at UTA in AI and robotics. I've been an inventor. I have 27 patents, an innovator in many different things, business processes to actual building gizmos and things like that. A bit of a visionary, sometimes a bit ahead of my time, which will be interesting to talk about. And I've also been a serial entrepreneur. My first entrepreneurial venture was pretty much a unsuccessful one, but I have a quick video here that will kind of describe that.
Mosquitoes can ruin everything. Until now, the best protection has been sticky sprays and chemicals. But thanks to the amazing new SkeeterGit, a patented electronic mosquito repellent, you can enjoy the outdoors again. SkeeterGit is harmless to humans, pets, and the environment, and protects your family from the diseases mosquitoes spread. SkeeterGit is available for only $19.95 plus shipping and handling. Have your credit card ready and call 1-800-982-0526. Don't get bit, get SkeeterGit. Call 1-800-982-0526 now.
Well, so that particular venture didn't go so well. I ended up with hundreds of those in my garage and giving them away for Christmas. But and we'll talk about ventures like that. What you may notice in there is that that's actually me in the video. That's because I ran out of money before I could pay for actual real actors to be able to do that. So The other thing I wanted to mention was my first successful venture was actually On-Ramp Technologies, which was the first ISP in the Southwest. And the quick story on that was that I actually, when they killed the superconducting super collider, which I was a scientist, I took the picture off the wall and made this T-shirt. It's one of the magnet delivery shafts where we would deliver the 40-ton magnets, and had 15 miles of it built. And if you can see on the T-shirt, it says, "Congress gave Texas the shaft, death of the super collider, October 21st, 1993. I intended to give away those T-shirts. I made 100 of them the night after the Congress killed the project. And this cute young girl asked me for 20 of them. I was planning on just giving them away. And she actually came back with $400 and ended up selling over 700 and made $15,000. And I used that to fund my first startup and buy my first router, of which we then built an ISP, which was pretty good size. It went from 0 to about $700 million in revenue in a relatively short period of time. We had some investors came in. I took a board position. That was Verio. We ended up selling that company. I had a very, very small piece after that because we did 53 acquisitions in less than 3 years. And it was a $5.5 billion cash acquisition by NTT, now called NTT Verio, which is the largest ISP in the world. Via Networks was another venture that we did, which was a web hosting play. Agilera, it was sold also to Verio, actually. VeriCenter was a play that was sold later to a company down in Houston. Winning Habits, I was on the board of. I was not a founder of that company. I2B Ventures was a venture seed fund company, which a lot of entrepreneurs think that they're, after they have a couple of wins, that they're brilliant. And I was one of those, and frankly, that didn't go well. And then there was VaultNet, Memorial.com, SensorLogic, which is an interesting one. You can see that we did some serious money raise over those times. And then Ublip was acquired by a public company, Numerex. And then lately I've been working with a company, I'm a founder of a company called Quantum IoT in the IoT space. So that's a bit of my story. The co-founders are on the left-hand side, as you can see. And then I've also been a board member or executive or chief technology officer or director in the companies that are on the right. Thanks, Tracy.
All right. And our third participant in today's roundtable is Hari Vasudevan. So tell us about your background, Hari.
All right. So I'm the founder and CEO of ThinkPower Solutions. We're a tech-enabled infrastructure management solutions provider, and we work in the mission critical infrastructure space. The company was started in 2013. We're about 200 employees right now, and our goal is to use the influence of modern technology to impact the mission critical infrastructure space. And I have a bachelor's from BITS Pilani in India, the same school that Srini went to, right, in civil engineering. And I do have a master's from UT Arlington. So that's my short and sweet introduction.
All right, thank you so much. So our students can tell that we've got a great diversity of folks here. I have some questions that we'll start the discussion with, but again, participants, if you would like to ask us questions, put your questions in the Q&A panel and we will bring them up for our entrepreneurs. So we have some questions focused on our audience and thinking about what they as young entrepreneurs can do to be successful and to get into the entrepreneurship space. So I would love to hear from each of you. I'm going to start with Hari, and then we'll go to Srini, and then we'll go to Jeff. So what can young entrepreneurs do to be successful? I'll also say, you could also say, what's the career path if you want to be an entrepreneur? So Hari, start us off. What do you think?
Yeah, so first of all, I don't think there's a very linear career path for entrepreneurs, as you would have seen in all the introductions, right? I kind of started selling literally some food for pocket money when I was in school, and it's a journey, right? Journey full of mistakes, right? In terms of what can young entrepreneurs do, right? So I personally, everybody's story is different. I try to read a lot, educate myself on various aspects of business, right? I have obviously an engineering background. I didn't have a business school. I didn't go to business school rather, and so I self-taught myself finance, accounting, sales, and other aspects of business well before I started the company, right? I wrote tons of business plans about what I consider right now as dumb ideas, but they all kind of helped me evolve my thought process, and I was well matured in my thought process before I started the company, right? Other than that, I think an entrepreneur should be prepared to be reasonably good at a variety of things, right? Legal, insurance, finance, accounting, HR, sales, right? You must be prepared to wear different hats at different times, and ready to anticipate problems and solve problems that you never thought would come your way, right? And in terms of pure skills, what I would look to develop is some of these things are inherent, rather, right? Resilience, toughness, tenacity, perseverance, persistence, right? I think in all these bios you saw people fail many times, right? I mean, I failed many times, and I've been fired a couple of times, and so all those things helps build up character. And the most important thing to me is rate of learning, right? A rate of learning has to be quick. The faster, higher, the better. So rate of learning is something that I really put a lot of emphasis on. That's my response there. So,
thank you. And Srini, tell us what you think. What would help a young entrepreneur be successful, and what kind of career path, and how do you start?
Yeah, so there's so many things to share, right? So if you're a young entrepreneur, the first thing I would say is you cannot do things part-time, right? So I'm kind of sharing my life experiences. So I was at American Airlines, and I didn't like the big company environment, and I was trying to do things part-time. So I had two jobs, the 9 to 5 and then like 6 to 2, and you just be working away on different ideas. And part-time thing never really works, right? So how can you sell someone on what you're building when you're not sold on it yourself, right? If you're very passionate about something, would you not want to just live and breathe it every day and take a risk and give up everything else for it? So you have to take a risk at some point, and part-time work does not work. And the second thing is finding mentors. Well, Hari touched on many things that you have to know eventually, right? You need to know about legal, accounting, marketing, selling, all of those different things. But how do you're in school, you get out of college and you don't have exposure to all of these things. Even I was an engineer, I didn't know all these things. So finding mentors is hugely important. You'll make lots of mistakes. The goal is to learn from these mistakes and hopefully not repeat them when you do the next thing. In my first big startup, I did not have any legal agreements before I started. It took me 2+ years to fight through it with a partner that I knew and to negotiate and get the legal documents done. I wish I had mentors that guided me through the whole process, but how do you find mentors, right? And you have to go seek out these opportunities, go network. There are so many organizations out there, accelerators that help you, and participate in pitch competitions, and find those mentors that can help you and guide you through the whole process. And you have to be coachable, because if you think that you know everything, then you won't succeed. You have to constantly be learning, like Hari said. And the other thing that I also did not understand, and maybe to be quite candid, even now don't understand enough, is how to say no. This is a tricky one, because you have only so many hours in the day. And if you say yes to everything, you will not do a good job of anything, right? Because you're just taking on too many things. You're trying to do favors. And that doesn't work. Focus on one thing, give it all you got. Always think about why you should say yes to something so you can use your time better. And having mentors, I think, is the biggest thing for a young entrepreneur.
Thank you. So we're going to go to Jeff, and then after Jeff comments on this question, we have a couple of questions from our audience that we will take on. So Jeff, tell us, what do you think young entrepreneurs need to do to be successful, and what kind of career path is there?
Right. So mine was certainly a winding career path, but I knew about myself that I was dysfunctional in a large organization. And so I knew that I better figure out something else. And a lot of times entrepreneurs don't really plan to be an entrepreneur. They sort of forced into it, and lots of great stories about that. You've already gotten some great input, Hari, and talking about the fact that you just need to be a constant learning machine, and reading some of the latest books, and making sure that you go to networking opportunities to find these other entrepreneurs and ask them questions, hard questions, and then listen. Developing listening skills is really important. The characteristics of the entrepreneurs that I've seen that are successful, they're always very optimistic. And so if you have a sort of a pessimistic Eeyore sort of mentality, you need to get over that, and you need to figure out how to do that. They're also very resourceful, and resourcefulness is so much better than being a know-it-all. No one likes, the know-it-all who thinks they need to be the smartest person in the room, because in many cases, particularly with some of the people that you'll meet, particularly when you're trying to raise funds and things like that, they are the smartest people in the room. And not only do they think they are, but they are. And so, trying to compete with that is basically a battle of egos. My first mentor was actually Dick Marcus. If you remember the company, or know the company Neiman Marcus, his father, Stanley Marcus, started it. If you haven't read the book Minding the Store, you should read that. It was written by Stanley Marcus. And Dick was a phenomenal mentor for me. I got into some situations that I had no idea what I was doing, and being able to go off to lunch with him. And there was another fellow that was a great resource to me. He was a super wealthy guy in the telecommunications industry, but he always showed up in this like 1969 Ford F-150 pickup. And he gave me a piece of advice every time I got into that pickup truck and we went to lunch. And I remember one of the incredible pieces of advice was, he said, "Hey, Jeff, it's a small world. Don't piss anybody off." And I kept with that my entire life. And it's just little adages like that from successful folks. And so the one piece of advice I would give for someone to be successful from an entrepreneurship is realize that nothing happens until you sell something. And so if you are to develop any particular skill, that would be sales. And I'm not talking about just sales of products and services and things like that. I'm talking about sales of yourself in front of people and audiences and things where you're trying to raise money and things like that. So that's the advice that I would give.
Thank you. And when you were talking about selling, the audience can't see everybody's faces, but I can see them, and everybody's nodding with you, Jeff. So that was definitely a big agreement on that. So we have two questions currently from our audience. And the first one, I'm not sure who will want to address this. So I'll tell you the question, and then you guys can tell me who wants to address it. So this question is obviously from a very well informed audience member. Why are we still not seeing prominent VCs like A16Z, Sequoia Cap investing around UTA and DFW? Are there not many folks pitching interesting products, or are these venture capitalists still biased towards a few schools? Anybody got any input on that one?
Well, I'll take a shot, just from the point of view of the fact that, I had been affiliated with UTA for 25 years or more, and I don't know that anybody really knows other than the people that talk to me, and they don't know that there's a relationship there. And so the relationships I have with many of the VCs that you saw the sort of tombstones of raising capital from, certainly, they talk about, ask questions about backgrounds and things like that. But I think that there are a large number of folks that have invested into UTA people, and even some of the resources around UTA from a research standpoint, but it's probably not well known.
And I saw that Srini also wanted to give some input on this.
Yeah, Carter. So yeah, it's a great question. So we're in fact going through a fundraising process now, and these days things have changed quite a bit. So the Bay Area is more about unicorns, and they're trying to chase the bigger things, right? So they want to have the home runs, the billion-dollar ideas. And so they're always looking for comfort in folks they know in the ecosystem. And traditionally, Dallas has not had that. So when I started my first company, late 90s, I was a lone wolf. I had no idea who else was doing any startups here in Dallas. And I was trying to seek out other networking opportunities. Well, if I were in the Bay Area, it's very different. That's the norm there. So the ecosystem breeds that. And now things have changed quite a bit. There are a lot more startups in Texas. And there are some funds that are solely focused on the non-big markets, if you will, in the California, New York, Boston area, like Revolution Capital, Steve Case's fund. They're looking to invest in other markets. They don't invest in those big markets. There are other Texas funds that solely focus on Texas. So there are plenty of opportunities here in Texas, and it's not necessarily about UT Arlington. It's more about these metros and the activity, entrepreneurial activity, and the ecosystem. Because in the Bay Area, you can find the talent. If you're trying to build an autonomous vehicle, there are a bunch of other guys doing it, so you can go find folks that know that. But we don't have enough of that here in Dallas. And that's changing, certainly. And you don't have to just go to the VCs in the Bay Area for money. There are plenty of other options.
Thank you. All right.
Carter, let me add one more thing to rip off of what Srini just said, if that's all right. So he makes a really good point about the Bay Area, and I pitched in the Bay Area, and I've actually raised a lot of money in the Bay Area. And the problem, though, with those funds is they're huge, and so they're multi-billion-dollar funds. I've seen offices where you had 1,000 business plans stacked up in the corner of people that are trying to pitch these folks. Any one of those companies really only needed, because a lot of software as a service is not capital intensive, maybe a few $1,000,000 from a startup standpoint. Well, they aren't going to unless your company has that, and that's why it's a unicorn problem, because a lot of these companies are looking for ones that are going to require $400 million in investment and then bring on other affiliates and things like that. And so you're talking about multi-billion, and many ideas actually start small. And so, for instance, I had a meeting just a few days ago with a fellow in Dallas who has a $10 million fund. Okay, and they're going to make 4 investments a year for the next 3 years. And so, the investment portfolio for that company is, through 3 stages is probably only a couple of $1 million per company, okay, or maybe $1 million per company. And so you have to, looking at your idea, if it's not a multi-billion-dollar market and a multi-billion-dollar opportunity, then think smaller, network into local, organizations that have smaller funds, and I think you'll have a lot more success.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to jump to the second question we currently have from our audience. So this question says, how can we as a student go about finding mentors such as yourselves to learn from firsthand experience what to expect as we encounter and come up with ideas? So how do they find mentors? And Srini would love to start us off. So Srini, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very passionate about that, because I struggled for many years with not having mentors, not knowing what to do, where to go. And there are lots of resources now, right? So you can start with, if you're at UTA, you can start participating in these pitch competitions, and the judges and the whole ecosystem just breeds that. You'll have access to it. I was talking to someone that was talking about how the whole education system is geared towards checking boxes. You go through your school thinking that, hey, I want to end up in some top school. What boxes do I check? And in that whole thing, they lose sight of what they're passionate about. They're not looking for opportunities. Same thing in college. Everyone is busy just trying to get through the course, through the program, and finding a job. Well, if that's your mindset, you're not going to find things. It's like you're trying to buy a car and you start driving down the freeway and you'll see the same car everywhere. But if you're not thinking about it, you're not seeing those cars, right? So if you are very intentional about it and you want to be an entrepreneur, you will seek those opportunities out. You can go talk to faculty, participate in these pitch competitions, go intern in a startup over summer. And there are plenty of those opportunities. There are local organizations like Entrepreneurs Organization, which is amazing. And they have an accelerator program. So if you have an idea and you put something together, working with a couple of friends, you can go to them and they can help. There is Tech Fort Worth and so many other organizations as well. So I would highly encourage you to start networking and going to these events. One, you get a lot of free food. That's great, always. and then you get to meet wonderful people. And these are people that just want to give. It really depends on how much time they have, but they are just there to give. And that's great for anyone that's starting out.
Thank you so much. Would either of the others like to add in anything about finding mentors?
Yeah, I can go.
Thanks, Hari.
So, I think I just want to double down on one thing that Srini said, which is find something that you're passionate about, something that energizes you, and something that you can energize others with, right? With your vision and mission. That's really important, so that the passion is obvious, right? When you go to networking events, right? Again, so that it's not a checking the box kind of thing, right? And the second thing I would say is don't chase money, right? It's important, right? But obviously chase opportunities to learn and grow, right? And to me, in terms of pure networking, I would say try to be part of trade organizations, relevant societies that is applicable to you and what you're trying to do, and tons of networking groups are out there, right? And that'll essentially pay for itself in the long run, multifold. That'll be my 2 cents there. So, thank you.
And just real quick, add, I think so if you focus in on the demographic, okay, and you think about the fact that these people are usually in their 40s to 60s, sometimes in their 70s. Dick was in his late 60s when I met him. They're usually very, very interesting people, and they go out to places that normally those sorts of people don't go to. They go to angel investor meetings. They go to tech startup type things. They go to places where they can learn about new technology, like Bitcoin and this kind of stuff. And so the unfortunate part is a lot of these things are not in person right now. And so it really, doesn't allow you to just walk up somebody into a room that you identify as somebody that just doesn't fit with the others. Mm-hmm. And there is an opportunity for you to, introduce yourself and just ask them questions and listen. And with that, you begin a relationship. And then I think that relationship and in the case of Dick Marcus and a couple of other of my mentors, they were actually first customers. And, Dick was a first customer in the ISP because he was interested in this internet thing. And he was one of the first few people that went to a seminar that I did about what is the internet. Okay, it was at the InfoMart. I did 200 of these things over the first year, and I trained a lot of people on what is the internet. And I can tell you, a ton of people came up to me after those things and sort of said, "Hey, listen, can we go to lunch?" And like many of those were people that were primed for being a great mentor because they were successful entrepreneurs in their own right, or executives and corporations that knew they needed to know about this stuff.
Awesome. Also, students, I want to let you know, if you don't already know, that UTA sponsors a pitch competition. So if you've already got that idea, the MAV pitch competition is looking for people right now. So you can look up MAV pitch. It's actually a College of Business It's under the College of Business website, but it's business ideas. So if you've got that idea and you just want some practice, here's a thing within UTA for you to take advantage of. All right, we just got a new question. Let's see if I can read the whole thing. Get my screen to come down here. So the question says, for some reason my screen doesn't like to show me the whole thing. There we go. For a tech entrepreneur, it seems like international students can't start a company very easily in the US. Should I go back to my home country of India and start my own venture, or work here for some time? And I've already interned at a couple of places, including late stage startups in SFO so should they stay here and work for work experience? So international student, obviously love to get Srini, start us off.
Okay, if I can unmute. Okay, great. I faced this problem. So when I was working for American Airlines, I was still on a work visa, and I was partnering with someone else, and we were trying to build a browser for the disabled, right? They can't see, how do they really browse the internet? It was the infancy of the internet back then, and I wanted to start a new entity, and I didn't really know. So we consulted an attorney, and there are certain entity types that you could set up even on a work visa. That should not be a problem. I would recommend that you talk to some legal counsel. Carter, I don't know if UTA has any legal counsel available there for students. They could potentially go talk to them.
I don't actually know, but the folks doing the pitch competition would probably be a good resource to tell you who to talk to.
Correct. So I'm sure there are ways of structuring that, so you can start an entity while you're here. You don't have to go back.
Thank you. Okay. Ari, did you want to join us?
Yeah, no, I mean, I just want to say, I mean, that should be an entrepreneurial question that the student should be able to figure it out. And as Srini said, I think you can do it. It's good to consult a legal counsel and figure it out. So,
thank you. So we have another question. So this one's from a student that says, if I'm living on my own, but want to commit fully to making a startup, how do I feed myself and keep a roof over my head when I'm not making any money? And the panelists are all smiling at the question, so we're going to see who's willing to take a chance and give you an answer. All right, Srini says he'll take the first cut. Go ahead, Srini.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but I have a lot of experiences to share. So when I started my first big venture, I just got married, and I went and told my boss, I'm going to quit my job. I told my wife, hey, I want to quit and do this thing that I've been incubating for a year, working nights and weekends. And she said, okay, fine. She didn't know any better. And I went to my boss, and my boss said, what took you so long? Because he was expecting me to quit a long time ago. And he wanted to invest in what I was starting back then. And I was surprised. And I went from a 6-figure salary to 0. But at the end of the day, I loved what I did. And I had so much passion for it that nothing else really mattered. And when you're young, you can take those chances. You know, how much do you need to really live? You can share an apartment. You need, a couple of meals a day and a computer, and you can hack away if you're working on software. So you don't need a lot to survive when you're young. That's why start early, so you don't have all those responsibilities. I will give you another example. I was talking to a friend who was in his 40s. He had a brilliant idea, and he was running it by me. He was working on it on the side of his desk. And I asked him, so would you quit your job to go do this full time? And he was hesitating. And I'm like, okay, so you're not passionate enough to give up what you have to go do that. That's what entrepreneurship is all about. There are no guarantees. but are you willing to take the risk? It could be you could get out, or you could have a single or double, or you could have a home run, but you keep trying, right? And you need to have that mindset in order to be an entrepreneur. You have to take that risk, and if it's early on, it's a lot easier.
Okay, thank you. Hart.
Yeah, I'd love to answer this as well, right? So, I mean, listen, first of all, I think if you don't believe in your idea, you can't sell your idea to anybody, right? Regardless of the first employees or venture capital fund or angel investors or anybody, right? That's number one. You had to get it out of the way, right? So you have to believe in something like a crazy person before you actually are able to convince others to join your crazy idea. That's number one, right? My own story, I had a 4-month-old baby when I started the company. Again, just like Srini, I quit a 6-figure job and it went to zero, right? Within a couple of years, I had 2 kids under 2, right? And but I was definitely lucky to have a wife who was working with full benefits, definitely takes care of practical things like healthcare, insurance, mortgage, and all those things, right? But realistically, we took a huge chance, and definitely it's been a home run, right? But this is one thing I'd like to leave you guys with, right? Which is, I use this mantra in every step of my life, which is, what is the worst thing that can happen if I take X, Y, or Z risk, right? And if the answer is something that I can live with, I usually go for it, right? So you definitely shouldn't be afraid to fail, because if you fail, you'll only rise up stronger than before. And just keep in mind your long-term goal. I mean, if your long-term goal is to do something on your own, have your own entrepreneurial venture, then every single step that you take, every misstep that you make, as long as it contributes towards your long-term goal, and as long as you make the lessons count, you should definitely seize the opportunities that come your way and take your chances, right? But again, the key thing is, if you don't believe in your own crazy idea, if you're not willing to take that chance, if you're not willing to leave your job or share a room with somebody and eat ramen all day long or for the next 2 years, then it's really nobody else is going to join your idea. It's simple, plain and simple.
So when I started OnRamp, I lived in the Village Apartments in Dallas, if you know where it is. It was a one-bedroom efficiency. I was 32 years old. I didn't have any babies. I was a single guy, and everything that I owned could fit in my Mazda 626. And I had a mattress on the floor that I usually dragged out to, because I like to sleep outside, to the porch. I had a rice cooker, a really nice 10-speed, and a nice stereo, and that was pretty much it. The idea of moving from a decent salary, wasn't 6 figures, but I was working for the government at the time, and that was a super collider, but it was it went to zero, and so I did have to basically pay for food and things like that. But it's amazing how cheap ramen can be and how many meals you can eat. So from that, I think the other thing is that realize that there are a lot of competitions. UTA has one of the best in the entire world, and the amount of money that it's funded by. I've been a judge on that competition. We've given out hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in order to seed a lot of these ideas. And that's one way to get money. I think friends and family is another way to get money. And also in the very early stages, basically doing the double shift, as Srini was talking about before, where before you have the full commit, you're going to full commit, but you can get a lot done beforehand. And to answer the question from an international standpoint, realize that you could also get a partner in the United States, and and figure out how to weave through all of that. And I know a little bit about H2A and F1 and all these sorts of visas and things like that, and I know that you don't want to sort of violate any of those concerns and get punted from the country, but taking action and then apologizing later sometimes is the entrepreneurial event.
All right. So thank you for all of those. I think that was a great answer for our student. I do have one comment from one of our watchers who mentions that the UTA Center for Entrepreneurship and Economic Innovation and Blackstone Launchpad are also running a business idea competition. It's running right now. In fact, the deadline is tomorrow. So if you've already got that idea and you're watching, the competition's virtual. It's hosted on the Startup Tree platform, and UTA students can compete for $1,000 prizes in 4 categories. If you're not looking at it, students, and you're interested, check the Q&A because there is a link there for that competition. So we have another question from a student, and this one's related to what you were just talking about starting up, but asking for some advice here. So the question says, taking a risk is very hard when you're a person, you're decided in what you want to do, but it's hard when your whole family doesn't support you because they like to play it safe because that's what they're used to. This person wants to start something while they're still finishing school. And so what is your biggest advice for what they should do while dealing with school and a truck payment? Who wants to take that one on? Srini's always happy to give me our first answer. So go ahead, Srini.
Yeah, waiting for others to raise their hand. But yeah, look, I think Hari touched on some of this too. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, it's I don't want to discourage anyone, but it's a tough road. You got to figure things out, because if you work for someone, something doesn't work out, you just can move on to another job. You can't do that when you own something, right? You got to figure things out. This is one of those things where you could still, Jeff talked about it, you could do your day thing, and then how many hours of sleep do you need, right? And can you spend time working on this product, testing it out, networking, and doing all those things to get to a point where you feel safe enough to go take the risk? And to be honest, early on, I don't even think it's a risk, because whatever money you make in a job, you could probably make that money by starting a business, and eventually make up a lot more than that. And let's say it doesn't work out. You go back, you have learned so much that you would never learn that in a job, because they'll just pigeonhole you into one area and you're just doing one little thing. Here you're getting exposed to so many different things. And when you go back and apply for a job, your resume will look so strong that you could make a ton more money later on. So it's not truly a risk. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, you should be able to figure these things out. And to the earlier question about how do you find a mentor too, I was reading a book from a VC in the Silicon Valley area, and he was talking about how do you go find these VCs? How do you get those introductions? It's like, you got to figure that out. That's part of being an entrepreneur. Go look at your LinkedIn, go network, and then go beg somebody to go make an introduction. There are a million different opportunities out there. You have to go seek them, right? So I think you just have to take the plunge and figure it out, and it'll work out in most cases, one way or the other.
All right, thank you much.
I'd like to add something. Tracy, could you go to my screen real quick? So everybody knows these successories. This is, it says at the bottom, success is a journey, not a destination. Well, working for me one time was the guy that actually did Disparities, and that was his startup company. And this was one of the ones that he had, which was risks. If you never try anything new, you'll miss out on many of life's great disappointments. And then the other one is defeat. For every winner, there are dozens of losers, and odds are you're one of them. Tracy, you can break off now. My point, though, is that most startups fail. Okay, and so be very careful, and the advice that you're probably getting from the folks that you're talking to may be pertinent. And so, and many times, like for instance, in my ventures, I was really early. And so if I waited a couple of years and developed the idea and finished my, degrees and things like that, I was probably on the right track. So you can do a lot of things from an entrepreneurial standpoint and still finish your diploma, and in fact prepare yourself more for a better idea that may come along. I would just I'm taking the alternative to the, hey, listen, go out, quit school and invest everything you have and run up your credit cards trying to start a venture that may not be successful.
Thank you.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is just want to double down on what Srini said, right? Which is, you gotta be willing to. The worst days, or there's going to be serious highs and lows in an entrepreneurial journey. The highs are spectacular highs, and the lows are devastating lows, right? So you got to be willing to be even keeled and able to live and learn with that. So that's the only thing I would add. And in addition to that, I would just repeat what I just said earlier, right? Which is, what is the worst thing that can happen to you if you take X, Y, or Z risk? And if something you can live with, you should go for it. So,
thank you. All right. So I'm definitely watching the Q&A. So you guys who are watching, if you've got more questions, go ahead and put them out there. There's not one at the moment, so I'm going to bring in one of our other questions that we were thinking about. And this actually wraps back to something Srini was saying at the very beginning. So as an entrepreneur, one of the things that you have to think about is, what does success mean to you? So I would like to hear from each of you, what does success mean to you personally? So who would like to start me off?
I'll go first, because Srini has been raising his hand all the time, and I just want to give his hand a little bit of a break there. So, all right. So, to me, it's pretty simple, right? The kind of industry that I'm in is sort of different from what Jeff is in and Srini is in. So, to me, make a positive impact on the lives of employees and community, right? Focus on delivering the best products and services to our customers, and maintains very, very high level of employee satisfaction, right? So for context, we've been rated as a great place to work consistently over the years. 93% of our employees think that we're a great place to work, and so that brings us great joy, and just keeping customers happy, keeping a very high level of employee satisfaction. Our retention rate, even in this super hot market, is north of 95-96%, and that's with a base of about 200 employees. So that's that is what definition of success for us, and it's different for different people. So,
thank you.
Tracy, could you break to the screen real quick? And I'm going to frame this, from the point of view of what has brought joy to my life, and the joy that I've had is basically, rather than tombstones, it's really more like the people that you weave into your experience. And I can tell you that in the companies that I've started, there are people that have sent me messages 20 years later where they said that it was change in their life. And that was spectacular, but not as spectacular as what I did in the later stages, taking a lot of the entrepreneur skills that I developed. I started 11 companies down in the poorest country of the world, Honduras, up in the poorest community in the poorest country in the world. And we did things like Battery Guy that would take batteries up and charge them down at the bottom of the hill. And for 20 cents a day, he'd allow people to have electricity so that their kids could study. We started a tattoo removal company with a donation. We took fully depreciated assets from Wendy's and took them down in containers and started bodegas. I started the first internet service provider down there, and all of these were little tiny companies, and a water filtration company wrapped up into an experience that I had where I won in 2006 the Kauffman Community Award for entrepreneurial social entrepreneurship. And that award and these faces are what bring joy to my life from an entrepreneurial standpoint. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Jeff. And Srini, do you want to add to that? Your definition of success for you?
Yeah, Carter, so I'm trying to unmute. Okay. By the way, happy to go last. success means different things to different people, right? Some people define success as financial success. To me, it's about doing what makes you happy, being your own boss. The financial independence obviously is very helpful as well. Money is important, but that's not what should drive your vision, right? At the end of the day, the core values that you believe in, they are a guiding force. And if you have a passion for what you do and you have strong core values, someone said, ideas are like buses. If one leaves, there is another one waiting right around the corner, right? So there'll be more ideas that will come. But it's about your core values and your guiding force, because you're working with, both Jeff and Hari touched on this, you're working with employees that you're mentoring and you're building this culture. You're working with customers and you want to care for them. They're buying into your vision, your team. There are investors putting money into you, into your company. They're investing in you. So core values become so critical, and treating people right, creating a fun environment, and all of those things. And we have an all hands meeting every month. And the first slide we have is culture, reinforcing our core values, tracking what we did the last 1 month to adhere to, stick to our core values, right? And just celebrating those things, because that's what at the end will make you happy. You can make money, but then it quickly goes away. The happiness goes away. You're on to the next thing saying, how do I make more money? But these values and all those stories like Jeff talked about, I still have people that call me years later that say, hey, I learned so much working for you guys. And also I was treated well and I enjoyed it so much. And that's what fulfills you really, right? So that's what you should seek. And that's, to me, success.
Thank you so much. So we have a couple more questions from students. So I'm going to jump to those. So the first, or the next question, what is your opinion on credit? Society is very huge on this. You need to buy a house, a vehicle, an apartment, and so forth. You've got to have credit. And would you use other people's money to support a startup idea and double it or even triple it? So what's your opinions on those? Waiting for somebody to take a cut at that one. All right, go ahead, Hari.
All right. So, in terms of, if I understand the question right, it's about credit. Should I buy everything that somebody else has? Is that the question, Trey?
So the credit, so it's just a question, I believe, about in general, your opinion on credit. And then in terms of supporting a startup idea, should you use credit or use other people's money? That's what I get from the question.
Yeah. So from my standpoint, we bootstrapped the company, right? So and we've been very successful at it, and we've scaled it well. So there's been no reason to raise capital, and different industry too, right? I mean, software industries, as Jeff and Srini can attest to. It's hard to do it without raising money. I mean, I know a lot of people have done it, right? But you kind of get into this deal of Series A, Series B. You raise a lot of money and you kind of keep pace with others. So Jeff and Srini can talk about it. I haven't done it, and we're happy to be bootstrapped and happy to do that, right? From our standpoint. So that'll be my response to that. So.
Thank you. All right, we've got Srini and Jeff both looking like they want to talk. So I'm going to go with Srini and then we'll go to Jeff.
Okay. Yeah, I think the people always say, always try and use other people's money to grow your business. That's something a friend of mine has always said. But investors won't put money into your business unless you take a risk on your own as well, right? If you want to have a comfortable job and you're doing this on the side of your desk and you're like, hey, give me $5 million to go do something, they won't do it. So you will have to show that you're going to take that risk and make that investment, and then others will come along. And two, it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to build a business organically and you want to own it fully, you want to control where you're going, you can do it on your own as well. You got to take those baby steps. It may take a longer amount of time, but you control what you're building. And at the right time, if you want to accelerate and for growth, you can go for a capital raise. If you don't want to take that much risk, I think Hari touched on this before, you don't want to over leverage yourself, because that'll put so much undue stress on you that it'll make you do things that you shouldn't be doing. You'll make bad decisions. So don't go overboard with it. Take an amount of risk that you can tolerate. And then beyond that, go to mentors and investors after that is my advice.
Excellent. And Jeff, you want to chime in as well?
Just two examples. One was an experience that I had with OnRamp, where I got behind. I wasn't going to make payroll that week. And my partner, Joe Bush, and myself basically said, who the hell can we go to in order to get $40,000 by the end of the week? And Joe was unable to go to his dad, who wouldn't have probably done it anyway. I ended up going to my dad, and I got a $40,000 note. What I didn't understand at the time was that note not only had to be paid off with interest, but it also had an equity kicker to it, where he ended up owning a significant portion of my company. And you know, that was tough to get, you know, frankly, screwed by your dad. But it was even tougher because it was a lesson that he was teaching me at the time that I never really benefited from at any time later. And, you know, that's is, you know, a company that I'm invested into, a friend of mine, Tom, that is basically a fund, and the fund provides debt mechanisms for these entrepreneurs / even established businesses. And frankly, the return on that investment for me over the last 5 years has been unbelievable. And it's amazing the number of companies. And one of the things that Tom does is he makes sure everybody goes personal. And so he knows we're going to get paid back. And frankly, the interest rate is almost usury. It's about 18%. And so there are plenty of people out there that go out and get in trouble, need to get capital very quickly, and people take advantage of them. Well, that's called capitalism, okay? And, you know, frankly, it works on the other side from the debt equation. So if you're on the debt side of the debt equation, you're probably on the wrong side.
Right. So I think I just want to add something here. So the lesson that I learned from this is don't go to your dad for money, right? Number one. Number two is, you know, try to bootstrap as much as you can before you raise money. So I think I want to cap it off with that. So.
Very well said.
That's right. Short and sweet. So.
And talk to Jeff if you want to double your money very quickly.
So no. Talk to Jeff's dad. So.
Yes. We had a couple of more questions from students. One was actually for you guys. Would you be willing to share your company links in the chat just so our attendees can find out more about what you do, what your companies do? They were interested. So hopefully you'll do that for them. And then one student did ask what programs UTA has for inventors and entrepreneurs. And I added a link to the chat for the Center for Entrepreneurship and Economic Innovation that was mentioned earlier. But there's a great page that says student opportunities to explore entrepreneurship and economic innovation. And it shows all kinds of different ways to get involved. So there's pitch competitions in business. College of Engineering's running Innovation Day. There's the Entrepreneur Society. There's places on campus where you can go make things. So maybe you've got a widget as your idea, and we've got a fantastic set of fab labs and maker spaces available. There are resources for entrepreneurs through the Career Development Center and the Veteran Business Center for our veteran students. And then there's even a link on this same page about entrepreneurship courses, because there are courses throughout the university in a lot of different areas. College of Engineering has courses, but there's courses in business and other places about Entrepreneurship. So this one page that I put a link in is in the it's on the UTA website, actually under the research area. So students, you guys take advantage of that. Hari, thank you for posting your links in the Q&A. I think some of the other links may have been posted in the private chat. If you guys want to post in the Q&A for the students. There's a question about, would you be willing to be reached through LinkedIn? And so I'll let you think about that, because there's one other student that's related. Basically, some of our attendees would like to have the chance to talk to you. So letting us know whether you would be willing to talk to some of our attendees today. And obviously, you all are very busy people, so we understand that you may have commitments. But thank you, Jeff and Hari, for posting your links in the Q&A on your website. So that's fantastic. And Jeff also posted his LinkedIn account. So for students interested in reaching him through LinkedIn, but anything you want to put into the Q&A for how students could reach you would be great. I'm not going to take us much longer because we are out of time, but thank you again so much. Let me give you 1 minute or less each to do any wrap up that you might want to do. I see Srini says his Q&A is freezing up, so Tracy or I will try to put your link into the Q&A for you, Srini. And then Jeff says he would be glad to talk to students. So Alejandro may be reaching out to you, Jeff, to talk to you. So let me give you just a brief moment if you would like to make any final wrap-up comments, since we are right at the edge of our time. Anybody want to add any final comments for us? Jeff, start us up.
Real quick, where I am now is now I'm a retired guy. I live on a off-the-grid homestead farm that we've built with a couple of hundred animals. I have a 2,000 square foot AI and robotics lab, and so I continue to do and have a lot of fun with that. And but most of the time, I basically milk cows in the morning and feed chickens in the afternoon and evening. So if you'd like to have a chat and talk about it, just send me an email message to the email address that's there, or my personal email address, which is easy to remember. It's jeff@jefflisa.com. Lisa is my wife's name. And I look forward to talking to you.
Thank you. And Srini, go ahead, and then we'll get Hari.
Yeah, thanks for involving me in this panel. It's been a pleasure to share our experiences. What I want to leave the group with is that entrepreneurship is a choice. Right? It's a wonderful choice to have. We are blessed, all of us are blessed to have that choice. And entrepreneurship really mirrors life. It teaches you a lot about the ups and downs, the adversity, and how to really survive through all of it. There is no right or wrong decision. For some folks, they're risk averse, they want to have a stable job. That's absolutely fine. For those that want to try this out, it's a great choice. Don't be afraid to make that choice and try, because if you fail, you qualify for a ton more jobs than you would if you did not try. And if you start early, you can afford to make those mistakes. And you should never regret not trying in the later stages of your life, right? To think about it, if you are in your 60s and you look back and say, oh man, I wish I tried that. Never have those regrets. Give it a shot. The worst that can happen is that it won't work out. You can go back to the job that you are already on, so it's not a problem. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And maybe Carter, if you can share our information with the students, they can reach out, and happy to share our experiences and give any guidance.
All right, thank you, and we'll do that. And Hari, did you want to have a couple of last words?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having us, and best wishes and good luck to the students out there. I would just say, hey, stay hungry, stay foolish, and stay in the moment, right? I think that'll take care of everything in life. That's all I can say. So.
All right. Thank you again so much for joining us. You guys have been a fantastic panel. Our students were very interested, as you can see by all of the conversation. And I suspect you'll be hearing from some of them. Thank you again, students. Thank you for attending. We hope you got some great information here and use these resources, both the UTA resources and our panelists who volunteered to be resources as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. Join us again for future brown bag opportunities. And we are hoping you have a great afternoon. Goodbye.
Thank you.